Hey everyone! So, I wanted to talk about Madagascar. This is one of those films that I used to obsessively rewatch as a child, which puts me amongst millions of other children who used to do the same, and you can definitely see why. It's a fast-paced comedy with a cast of colorful characters that isn't that heavy on emotion. If the children didn't understand the jokes the characters were talking about, the bouncy animation was vivid enough to be entertaining. Despite the film being such a colossal hit in the box office, how is it that not many people discuss it? Before we move on, I think it's in our best interests to talk about Jeffrey Katzenberg. He's mainly known as one of the reasons for Disney's much successful Renaissance era, but the Renaissance era happened in spite of him. I'll give you some examples. Firstly, he initially ordered Part of Your World to be removed from the final cut of The Little Mermaid until the test screenings convinced him otherwise. Secondly, Pocahontas and The Lion King were concurrently in production, and Katzenberg believed that Pocahontas was going to be more successful due to its similarities with Romeo and Juliet. Ironically, this turned out to be the opposite. The Lion King had gained universal acclaim from critics and audiences and went on to be the highest grossing traditionally animated film of all time, whereas Pocahontas received mixed reviews from critics and grossed less than The Lion King. Lastly, he pulled out the advertising of The Rescuers Down Under just because it opened 4th place in the first weekend's box office. Katzenberg was forced into resigning from the Walt Disney Company due to his resentment that Michael Eisner, then CEO, had not promoted him to president after the previous office holder, Frank Wells, had passed away in a helicopter crash. Tensions between Katzenberg and Disney had been building long before that, since many people at Disney thought that Katzenberg had been taking too much credit for the successes in its movie business, particularly with the animated feature division. Fueled with rage and a hint of ambition towards his desire to bring down Disney to their bare knees, he co-founded DreamWorks with music executive David Geffen and acclaimed director and producer Steven Spielberg. That's why the SKG. The Shrek franchise has been a critique of earlier Disney and Grimm Brothers' fairy tales, and it used that as an opportunity to create a heartwarming saga around Shrek and company. But there have been a lot of times where it was all about throwing shade at Disney, especially with how Duloc and Lord Farquaad are designed after Disneyland and Michael Eisner, then CEO of the Walt Disney Company. The only reason Ants was made was because Katzenberg was told detailed plans about A Bug's Life by the writers during a tour through Pixar offices for some reason. I know that I'm painting Katzenberg as this troublesome, power-hungry businessman, but his extremely controlling leadership style did keep Disney in check. What else can you expect from the founder of Quibi? Alright, I'm going a little off topic, so I'll just point out some details that occurred during the production of Madagascar. Before Madagascar was conceptualized, the Penguins were going to star as a rock band in Rockumentary, a Beatles-inspired mockumentary that was going to chronicle the band's rise and fall, but the idea was eventually scrapped. While they were writing Madagascar, co-director Eric Darnell decided to revitalize the Penguins as a commando unit. The Penguins struck such a chord with audiences that DreamWorks was forced to have them lead their very own TV show. DreamWorks even tried to take a Minions approach by setting a franchise around the Penguins through Penguins of Madagascar. The film wasn't exactly that successful for DreamWorks to believe in the commercial viability of a Penguins franchise, but it was good enough for the odd ones out to make a 9-minute commercial about it. Melman was supposed to be an okapi until he was changed into a giraffe because giraffes are more recognizable, but we did get an okapi character in Madly Madagascar. King Julian was intended to be a minor character with only 2 lines, but Sacha Baron Cohen had impressed the directors with around 10 minutes of his improv material for the character. And Gloria was going to be pregnant due to her being part of the breeding program at the zoo, and throughout the film she was going to raise her child on the island with Melman helping her out, making them a couple. The subplot was scrapped since it didn't fit in with the tone of the film, but Gloria and Melman eventually became a couple in future films. During the animation process, DreamWorks had harnessed computational power from advanced microdevices Opteron chips, and Hewlett-Packard, which licensed workstations, servers, notebooks, and laptops to render images of the stylistic yet goofy animation style, and the hairy technology used on Alex Lyon and the lemurs. What caught my attention was that one of the primary reasons that got audiences intrigued about the film was that the animation style was leaning towards the two-dimensional Hanna-Barbera cartoons and not the traditional three-dimensional approach that always had to be groundbreaking. I think many people overlook the fact that Madagascar proved to be very influential to future DreamWorks projects, which is quite ironic because the film received only mixed reviews as compared to something like Shrek. The thing about Shrek is that it's an introspective parody that deconstructs the inner workings of early fairy tales in literature and presents a creative vision that is unlike anything you've ever seen before in 21st century animation. But was Shrek influential to DreamWorks? In 2004, Shark Tale, which was supposed to be a parody on gangster films, was released. It was clearly born out of Shrek's historic win at the Oscars, but the film ultimately felt like an uninspired compilation of individual commercially viable elements that made Shrek work. The only redeeming quality that I can think of is that the voice acting has some weight to it. The only true blue parody that DreamWorks produced recently was Monsters vs. Aliens in 2009. Even this fell short, but its shortcomings were the result of it being a family-friendly affair, which was exactly the effect that Madagascar had on the company. The success of Madagascar was the final nail on the wall as to the kind of films DreamWorks wanted to share with audiences. Films built around zany concepts and filled with tongue-in-cheek humor that is just pure entertainment for audiences of all ages. Although it is worth mentioning that the studio is slightly meandering away from the kind of films they used to produce after they were sold to Universal in 2016. So, at this point, this is just pure speculation from me.